Imagine being 7 years old. It's the hottest day of the summer. You've spent all morning squeezing lemons, covered in sticky sugar, setting up a tiny wooden table on the sidewalk. Your only goal? Making enough spare change to finally buy that shiny new bicycle you've been dreaming about. But instead of your first customer, you get the police. Meet Susan, a woman who looked at a child's innocent summer project and saw a criminal enterprise that needed to be shut down immediately. She actually dialed 911 on a 7-year-old boy. But Susan made one massive miscalculation. When the officers arrived, expecting to handle a neighborhood dispute, they realized who the real problem was. And instead of shutting the kid down, they did something that humiliated this Karen, made national headlines, and will completely restore your faith in humanity. This is the unbelievable true story of the lemonade stand that broke the internet. You're going to want to grab a snack for this one, because the level of entitlement you are about to witness is going to make your blood boil. To understand how things went so terribly wrong, we first have to understand where this all started. Welcome to Oakwood Grove, a quiet, picture-perfect suburban neighborhood. The kind of place with manicured lawns, friendly waves, and HOA meetings that drag on for hours. And living in one of these houses was a little boy named Leo. Leo wasn't your average kid who spent all day playing video games. He was an aspiring entrepreneur. At just 7 years old, he had his eyes set on a prize, a $150 mountain bike he had seen in the window of the local sports shop. His parents, wanting to teach him the value of hard work, told him they would pay for half if he could earn the rest. So Leo came up with a foolproof business plan, a classic American tradition, a lemonade stand. He spent his Friday night designing a colorful cardboard sign. He squeezed dozens of lemons. He carried a folding table to the edge of his driveway. It was the perfect, innocent summer scene. But in the shadows of this quiet street, someone was watching. Every neighborhood has one. The person who measures grass length with a ruler. The person who reports parking violations at 2 a.m. In Oakwood Grove, that person was Susan. Susan wasn't just a strict neighbor. She was the self-appointed overlord of the street. Over the years, Susan had called the authorities for almost everything. A dog barking for more than 2 minutes? She called animal control. A neighbor painting their mailbox the wrong shade of beige? She filed an HOA complaint. But Susan had a particular disdain for children playing outside. She hated the noise. She hated the chalk on the sidewalks. And most of all, she hated unregulated activity in her neighborhood. Spend this chapter narrating 2 or 3 short, fictionalized but realistic anecdotes of Susan terrorizing other neighbors to build her character profile. It's Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Business is booming for little Leo. He's already made $4. He is grinning from ear to ear. But then, the front door of the house across the street swings open. Out marches Susan. She isn't just walking, she is marching with a purpose. Her phone is already clutched tightly in her hand. According to witnesses, Susan didn't even say hello. She marched straight up to Leo's folding table, looked down at the 7-year-old, and demanded to see his vendor's permit. Leo, completely confused, just held up a plastic cup of lemonade and said, "It's 50 cents, ma'am." Susan lost it. She began yelling. She told this child that he was illegally operating a business on residential property. She cited city ordinances. She told him he was creating a health hazard because the lemonade wasn't prepared in a commercial KitchenAid. Imagine the psychological impact on a 7-year-old. You think you're doing something good, something your parents are proud of, and suddenly a grown adult is screaming at you about tax evasion and health codes. Leo started to cry. His mom, hearing the commotion from the kitchen window, rushed outside. But by the time she got there, Susan had already dialed 911. Elaborate on the argument between Leo's mom and Susan. Build the tension. The mother defending her child, Susan aggressively holding her ground, refusing to leave. Let's take a second to realize how ridiculous this is. Police officers deal with robberies, violence, and life-threatening emergencies. And here is Susan, tying up emergency dispatch lines. Dispatcher 911, what is your emergency? Susan, yes, I need an officer at Oakwood Grove immediately. There is illegal vending happening on the sidewalk. Dispatcher, ma'am, is someone in danger? What are they selling? Susan, unlicensed beverages. It's a child. He doesn't have a permit. Send a squad car. For 20 minutes, the neighborhood stood at a standstill. Other neighbors started coming out of their houses. They formed a protective circle around Leo's stand. Susan stood on her lawn, arms crossed, with a smug smile on her face. She was convinced she had won. She was convinced that the police were going to pull up, dismantle the cardboard sign, and teach this kid a lesson. At 11:45 a.m., 2 police cruisers slowly pulled down the street. Susan's smug smile grew wider. She stepped forward, ready to direct the officers like a general commanding troops. Officers Miller and Davis stepped out of their vehicles. They looked at Susan. They looked at the crying 7-year-old boy. They looked at the hand-drawn "Lemonade 50 cents" sign. Susan immediately launched into her tirade. Officers, finally, you need to shut this down. Issue a citation. But Officer Miller held up his hand, stopping Susan mid-sentence. He didn't look at her. He walked right past her. He walked up to little Leo, who was shaking behind his mom's legs. Officer Miller knelt down so he was at eye level with the boy. And he asked one simple question. What flavors do you have, buddy? Susan's jaw hit the floor. The officers pulled out their wallets. Not only did they refuse to shut the stand down, they bought every single cup of lemonade Leo had left. They handed him a crisp $20 bill and told him to keep the change. They then turned to Susan. With the entire neighborhood watching, Officer Miller politely but firmly informed Susan about the misuse of the 911 emergency system. He warned her that if she ever called emergency services over a child playing on the sidewalk again, she would be the one receiving a heavy fine. The story didn't end there. One of the neighbors had recorded the entire interaction and posted it online. Within 24 hours, the video had 5 million views. The internet did what the internet does best. They rallied behind Leo. The next weekend, Leo set up his stand again. But this time, he didn't just get a few neighbors. Hundreds of people from all over the city drove down to Oakwood Grove to buy lemonade. Bikers, firefighters, and dozens of police officers showed up to support him. Leo didn't just make enough money for his $150 bicycle. He made over $5,000, which he and his parents decided to donate to a local children's charity. As for Susan, she became known nationwide as the Lemonade Karen. Facing the overwhelming judgment of her community, She rarely came out to complain about the neighborhood kids ever again. It goes to show that while there will always be bitter people trying to pour water on someone else's fire, the warmth of a good community will always shine brighter. What would you have done if you were Leo's parents? Let me know in the comments below. If you loved this story of instant karma, hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible true stories, and I'll see you in the next video.